Everybody. Today we are beginning 6B. Yesterday you should have finished 6A. Today we're beginning 6B and we're going to be calculating taxes using algorithms. What it is for algorithms in math is typically an equation. That's not exactly an equation. A better word for it is a function. Okay? So we want to be able to understand that we can calculate taxes using a function. And it's pretty simple for us to be able to do that. Let's take a look at the first one. What would an equation be for a tax rate of 10%? Well, let's say our income is I. You take whatever your income is and you multiply it by 0.1. Or you could do 0.10 if you like the 10 for 10%. But we just take I, multiply it by 0.10, and that gives us our taxes. Okay. So what if we know if the tax rate increases to 12% for all incomes above $11,926? Now, by above, I mean including that. But now it's an extra 12%. And we actually already started writing these equations. So I'm pretty sure you guys can do this. Go ahead and see if you can write it out yourself, knowing the taxable bracket and the tax owed down below. Okay, well, let's try and do it with a more general function. All right, if we start with T, taxes you owe equals 0.12, that's the 12%, times the income, but we're going to subtract out our starting value, our 11,000. I put an arrow, not a subtract. Subtract out $11,925. So we take our income, subtract out $11,925, multiply that by 0.12. That's good. But we also need to do one more thing. We need to understand that first 11,000 is taxed at that lower tax rate. And since you surpass that, it's a solid number, specifically 1,192.50. So this would be our tax rate for 12%. We take our value or our income, subtract out the income from the column before it or the row before it, multiply it by 0.12, and then add that $1,192. And that gives us our tax rate for 12%. Now, using the singles tax rate below, we want to create equations for each tax rate. And let's go ahead and do so. We know these individually. Let's go ahead and put down the first two. Tax is equal to 0.1 times the income. This one, tax is equal to 0.12 times the income minus 11,925 plus 1192.50. All right, that's our second one. Well, what's our third one? Well, same kind of thing. The tax rate is equal to 0.22 this time, and times the interest rate, or not interest, times the income minus 48,475. Notice that I'm getting it from right there. And plus 5,578.50. Now, some of you may be wondering why we're putting this at the end rather than the beginning. Well, let me go ahead and remind you that we put it at the end on each of these equations. We wrote that at the end plus the 12%. But as we're pushing towards a greater understanding here, putting that value at the end will actually be pretty helpful to us. We talked about this before, but these equations are written in point-slope form. Here is kind of our y, here's our slope, here's our x, here's the h value, and here's the k value. So we're able to write out this formula. All right, next one. Oh, this is getting pretty easy. I'm really just using the numbers over here to know exactly what to write. So make sure you can do this yourself. I'm going to get the next few, or I'm going to get the next two, and you should be able to do the last two completely by yourself. Try and do them all right now, though. Pause the video and go through all four of them, and I'm going to do the next two in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let me change colors here. Just kind of keep it constantly changing. Let's go to our next one. Tax is equal to 0.24 times income minus 103,350 plus 17,651. There we go. All right, next one. Tax is equal to 0.32 times the interest rate minus 197.300, or not, 197,300. Don't need a point at all. 4199. Okay, and then you can keep going. Now go ahead and get the last two yourself, and we're going to go on down below to do our piecewise function to get our taxes based on income. Now in the last two chapters, we've been introducing this idea of a piecewise function. You guys should understand it pretty well by now, but let's make sure we can apply it to this situation. Here's our function. We would say taxes based on income are equal to, and notice how there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ones. That's going to give us a really big piecewise function, so make sure you make your bracket very big. There we go. Very big. All right, so each of these are going to be different times in which we use it. So our first one up here, I'm going to duplicate that, bring it right down here. That's our first function. Our second function is right here. So I'm going to put that there, get rid of that. Just to make things a little bit better, we're going to change the style of this one. And let's make it orange. Don't use orange that often. Okay, let's go ahead and do the next one. Missed it. Okay, that's 3. Take this one, duplicate, and bring it down here. Okay, next one, duplicate, bring it down here. And of course, the next two should look like this. 0.32 times I minus, what is it, 250, 525. Plus 57,231. Okay. And finally, our last one is 0.37 times I minus 6.6. 6.6351 plus 769. 188,769.75. And those are 7 different functions that we can use. And one thing I want to do is make them just a tiny bit smaller, because I want us to be able to see the fullness of what we're going to do. And to do that, we just need them to be a little bit smaller. All right. Each of these are the functions to use. Which one to use, and you got to think about it when. that tells us what function to use. But over here, we're going to write down when to use it. When do we want to use it? All right. Let's go ahead and kind of think about when we want to use this. The first one is 0.1i, or 10% of your income. So we know that it's going to start whenever you have an income of 0, and it's going to go, so your income ends up reaching 11,925. Now the reason I can tell that without looking anywhere else is I can actually see it on the next problem. It's right there. And it's kind of nice to be able to do that. All right, let's do our next one. Switch to orange. This goes from 11,925, all the way to 48,475. Boom. Next one. We've got 48,475 less than I, less than 100,350. Okay. We've got 103,350 is less than I. Oh, and I forgot the equal to up above. So equal to there is less than I, which is going to be less than or equal to 197,300. Okay. Goes from 197,300 all the way to 250,525 and less than I, less than or equal to. Okay, you should be able to do the last two yourself. Again, notice where I'm getting these numbers from. They're not magic. They're actually from these bounds, this x value and this x value. This x value, this one. This one, this one. This one, this one. Okay, keep going and fill out the rest of it to the best of your ability. All right, I'm going to do the last two in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2, 0. Sorry, that's wrong. 250,525 is less than I, which is less than or equal to 626,351. Now the last one doesn't have anything bigger than it, so we're only going to write the first half. We're going to say 626,351 is less than I. So if your income is greater than 626,000, you use the bottom function. This whole part tells us when to use the function. This tells us what to use. All right? And that gives us a nice giant piecewise function. Whew. With that piecewise function, we can go ahead and make a graph. Now, in knowing what I know the bottom of our graph is going to be the income. See where it says X, we're going to change that to I. And the Y, we're going to change to T. All right? So we have income and we have taxes. And with our income, I notice that it goes all the way to 600,000. So I'm going to go up a little bit less than that, actually. I'm going to see what I can do just by every 2 squares is going to be 50,000. And I'm going to use that for this, just so we can have a distinguishing mark. So this is going to be 50,000. This one's going to be 100K. 150K. 200K. 250K. 300K. 350K. 400K. 450K. And 500K. Now, even though I'm going up to 500,000, I won't be able to get this last one on the graph. That's okay. Vertically, though, we're going to think about the taxes. And notice how the taxes go up 10% to 37%. We're going to have to do a few calculations to actually get those taxes. but we can see over here what the taxes sum to. This top one is 57,000, so I want it to go up to 60,000. That means every square, I'm going to do 5,000. So this is every 2 squares will be 5,000. That's 5K right there. This one is 10K. This one is 15K, 20K, 25K, 30K, 35K, 40K, 45K, and 50K. Notice taxes are going to not get to the maximum. And that's okay, just based on the size of the graph. All right, let's start off with the first one. So your income goes to 11,000, and that color is blue. So let's go to blue here. Your income goes to 11,000. 11,000 isn't even here. It's actually right about there. So once you get to 11,000, your taxes are 10%. They're basically 1,000. So it's going to be right about here. And it starts at 0, 0. So our first one goes like this. Not too exciting. All right, the second one is at 12%, slightly higher. And it goes all the way until you get to 48,000, roughly 50,000, from where we started. Okay, so we know it's going to go to roughly right about here. All right. And we know that the taxes are going to start at 1,100 and they're going to end at 5,500. So let's get to 5,500 and roughly 50,000, and let's put that in orange. 5,500 and roughly 50,000 right about here. And it's got to connect to that one. So this is our orange one. Next, we've got our incomes going from 50,000 to 103,000. So we know it's going to go from here to here, basically. Roughly right there to somewhere along here. Well, what's the total cost? That's where I'm going to look down below and I'm going to be like, oh, that's total cost is 17,600. So if I look here, 17,600 is after 15,000. It's right here. We're roughly at 100K. So let me go right there. And this one's going to go down. Notice how it's slightly steeper than the other one. Each one is just a little bit steeper and steeper. All right, next one. Let's see, 24. This one goes from 100,000 to almost 200,000. Not too difficult to do. And it goes up to 40,000 in taxes. So notice that those taxes, let's just make sure it's 40,000 in taxes. Yes, 40,000 in taxes. So we can over here 40K, and we're going to look at 200K right about here. And goes there. It's not much steeper than the other one because we have a difference between 24% and 22%. Not a big difference. But notice how the 22% is real steep compared to the 12%. And that probably should be a little bit less steep with the blue one there. All right, and our last one that we're going to be able to put on this, it goes up to 600,000, and it this will go a little bit further now that I was thinking about it. This should this goes to 250,000, should be right about there. And then our last one is going to be a bit steeper than this. It's going to go up like so. Now, just because of the amount of space we have, we won't go up that much. This is one of the other things that I start to think about. Do I have enough space? first time making these notes. I don't have enough space. So next year, I will make sure that there's more space on this grid. And across the bottom, we're going to put the income. And across the vertical axis, that's taxes. Okay. With that said, you should be able to do the next page. We're going to be working on the next page in class tomorrow, but you're going to try and make yourself a piecewise function, and then you're going to go ahead and try to graph the piecewise function. And last but not least, we're going to see if we can take this graph and come up with a piecewise function for it. With that said, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I hope you guys learned a lot, and I will talk to you tomorrow.